This time I'll call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll do a roll call of supervisors. All right. Yeah, yes, and confirm. Which I'm doing, and it's not going up there. Out in the seats. This is not chairman error. Did Supervisor Hallman call or anything? Supervisors Underhill and Hallman are excused. Move on with recognition of the 2011-2012 Youth and Governance members. Hold on, let me find your mic. Which one is it? This one? Which mic is it? This one?
Yep, that's it.
Try it, Teddy.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight will be our 6th group of students to participate in Youth and Governance. Wow. I mean, that's tremendous. On behalf of the Kenosha County Board of Supervisors and Kenosha County UW Extension, we want to recognize youth for their outstanding contributions to Kenosha County through their participation in the Kenosha County Youth and Governance Program from last May 2011 through May 2012. Before we do this, however, I do want to take a moment and recognize those of you here on the County Board who have served as mentors to these fine young adults. They are Supervisors Kim Brunig, Aaron Decker, Gail Gentz, Jeff Gentz, David Hallman, William Michael, and Rob Zerbin. The program has had impact. I don't need to tell those of you on the County Board that you've been participating with them for the last 6 years. On your desks tonight, you're going to find our annual report describing the value from their perspective. The youth here completed an evaluation and gave us their feedback on what it meant to them. So I encourage you to take the time to review their feedback, and I think you're going to agree. It has made a difference to the lives of these young people. We're now going to recognize them for completing their term. When I call your name, please come forward to receive your certificate from Jeff Gentz, Chairman of the County Board, and Kim Brunig, the 2012 Chair of the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee. Please hold your applause until all youth are recognized. I'm going to recognize the youth members with 1 year of service first and 2nd years of service following. Colin Drakus for Judiciary and Law was not able to be here this evening. Trina Capelli, Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee. Christina Dalton, Public Works and Facilities, was also not able to be here, as well as Gerlin Graywall, Joint Services Committee. Admir Kadri for Finance and Administration Committee. Abby McDonald, Judiciary and Law. Christina Rendy, Executive Committee. Paige Schultz, Finance and Administration. And Mia Williams served on Joint Services. Now I'd like to recognize the youth who have served 2 years. This has been our largest year of returning youth, I should say, in our 6 years. Dustin Beth, serving on Public Works and Facilities. Jasmine Galindo for Human Services. Kate Giroux for Human Services. Megan Jacob for Executive Committee. And Heather Zons, Planning, Development, and Extension Education. As has come tradition with our Youth in Governance, one of our 2-year Youth in Governance members will briefly share remarks about their experience. Megan Jacob, a senior at St. Joseph Catholic Academy, served on Human Services Committee last year, and this year the Executive Committee. Megan?
Well, good evening, everyone. Like Teddy said, my name is Megan Jacket, and I served on Human Services my first year of Youth in Governance, and Executive my second. When my experience on Executive was very broad, I was able to experience and learn about all levels of Kenosha County government because Executive Committee brings a supervisor from every department on to this committee. So I learned about Judiciary and Law, Highway and Parks, UW Extension, Human Services, all about Kenosha County government every Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month for like 3 hours. And it was great because I was able to determine what I want to go into for college, which brings me back to my experience on Human Services, which was absolutely amazing. I loved my experience on Human Services because I am planning on studying social work at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. And I was able to confirm my desire to go study such a social services field. So what my experience on Youth in Governance has provided me with is my own little Kenosha County government family. The mentors that Youth in Governance have are not just mentors in your meetings or at Tuesday night county board meetings. They're mentors even outside the meetings. I know Mark Molinaro, I see him on the outside. I saw him at prom this past weekend. We were talking about government. Saw Terry Rose. Terry Rose was at my art show. We were talking about government. Like, you see them on the outside, and they're very easy to talk to, and you can ask them, hey, what was going on at this last meeting? And also, I was able, over the summer, I went to Badger Girl State, where we had a run for elections, and when it came time for county elections, I was like, whoa, experience. I know what I'm doing. And I ran for county supervisor, and I was able to go back to my committee and say, hey, this is what I did. I was you guys for a week. And also, it just becomes part of your life. Like, not only do you go to your meetings once a month, which are very important, future Youth in Governance, don't miss them because it's only once in a while, and you get to miss it. Like, I know that leaving my last meeting, I walked out, and it was weird. I turned around. I was walking out with all my supervisors, and I turned around, and it was weird because I was like, this is my last meeting as a Youth in Governance member. This was something that I've done every month for 2 years. And just with that coming to an end, and high school coming to an end, it's all coming to an end. But I would turned around and I was like, this is my last meeting as a Youth in Governance member. I'm now an ordinary citizen, I guess you could say. But an ordinary citizen with an extraordinary Youth in Governance experience behind me. Like, I was talking to a future Youth in Governance member with asking me if I'm going to keep my name tag. And of course I'm going to keep my name tag. I'm putting a label that says alumni on the bottom of it. And when I come to meetings, I will be bringing it with me. So that was my experience, and it's just a very valuable program that I recommend for all youth to try to apply for and to take as much advantage of as you can, because it really pays off in the future. And you put as much as you put into it, you get out of it. So participate, ask questions, don't be afraid to talk to any of the supervisors, because it is an amazing experience if you make it an amazing experience.
Join me in thanking these members for serving Kenosha County. As in past years, there continues to be tremendous interest in our Youth and Governance program. Just to give you a snapshot of what we've gone through to get to this point tonight, we received 170 nominations from 11 high schools throughout Kenosha County, as well as 5 individuals throughout the community. From those nominations, 41 youth submitted the application. The Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee interviewed 27 youth to recommend 14 names to Chairman Gentz. Thank you to the members of the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee for their work. Supervisors David Hallman, Daniel Esposito, Aaron Decker, Michael Underhill, and Chairman Kim Brunig. 3 Youth and Governance members also participated in the interviews: Dustin Beth, Trina Capelli, and Heather Zons. We'd like to acknowledge this year's mentors to these youth who we will be soon appointing. The mentor for the Executive Committee is Kimberly Brunig, Finance and Administration, Mark Molinaro, Human Services, Aaron Decker, Joint Services, Jenny Tunkeys, Judiciary and Law, Boyd Frederick, Planning, Development, and Extension Education, Mike Underhill, Public Works and Facilities, Gabe Nudo. We'll now appoint the 2012-2013 youth to the Kenosha County Board committees. When I call your name, please step forward to receive your official Kenosha County pin from Chairman Jeff Gentz and Kimberly Brunig, Chair of the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee. Colin Baruchak, Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee. John Carswell, Finance and Administration. Trevor Foster, Judiciary and Law. Jacob Genthner, Human Services. Renaz Jawani, Joint Services. James Joling, Public Works and Facilities. Stephanie Kervilla, Human Services. Sabrina Michelli, Finance and Administration. Bianca Ricker, Planning, Development, and Extension Education. Emily Rowe, Executive Committee. Ashley Schneider, Public Works and Facilities. Unable to be here this evening, Justin Schweitzer for Joint Services. Audrey Simard, Judiciary and Law. Michael Verolio, Executive Committee. Join me in congratulating these outstanding Kenosha County young people. We told them that it would be like lots of paparazzi here with their pictures. Now they believe me, all these photos. Chairman Gens, thank you, and thank you to the Kenosha County Board for your continued support of youth and governance. These young people are our future. John and I are waiting for the day when we look up there into that podium, into that big chair, and one of these youth will be sitting in that chair. That'll be a grand day for Kenosha County. Thank you again.
Record shows Supervisor Hallman. Next item. Okay. State of the County. Kreuser.
I think we'll, is that mic carrying out? All right, the electronics are working. That's good. I think we saw the future county executive at one of these people up here before. And hats off to Supervisor Brunig for working together on that and getting that all done. And it's really fulfilling and inspirational speech by that youngster. Makes me come up here with trepidation after that. So, good evening, Chairman Gens, Vice Chairman Kavicki, ladies and gentlemen of the County Board, youth and governance participants, and citizens of Kenosha County. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to stand before you tonight on my fourth State of the County address. The state of Kenosha County is strong. We in county government have proven to be flexible and resilient. We've been able to adapt to change swiftly in these uncertain times. As a result, we've been able to continue to make our county more inviting to businesses and residents, those that are young and those that are young at heart. And speaking of young at heart, how many counties can say they're home to Miss America? We are all proud of Miss America. Congratulations, Laura Kapler, wherever you are representing Wisconsin or Kenosha, and Kenosha. So I think that's just terrific. And I appreciate Dennis Elverman, Supervisor Elverman's support on getting those signs up, showing our civic pride on that issue. The county is on solid financial footing through the efforts of the County Executive's Office and this County Board. We have consolidated our financial reporting, taking on many best practices, and have been able to hold our expenses well below the rate of inflation at a time when county government is most needed. The county's financial plan is sound and responsible, and that's supported by two top national credit rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, both of which have given Kenosha County a top rating. Moody's rating rates the county at AA1, and Standard & Poor's rates the county at AA. The Moody's rating is just one notch below the top scale rating of AAA. And we are one notch above the rating of the state of Wisconsin. We have maintained this rating through the economic decline that has affected our county, our state, and our nation. While other communities have seen their bond rating slip, we have maintained one of the highest bond ratings in the county over the past 4 years because of strong administrative practices and a good working relationship between administration and the county board. We have and will continue to work toward building our general fund balance, which reflects our financial stability. Both rating agencies say that the county has strong financial practices, particularly in developing and preserving its flexibility with strong fund balances. Moody's states, the county's financial operations will likely remain satisfactory due to the prudent budgeting practices and the management's commitment to maintaining solid reserve levels in light of broader economic and state-level challenges. Moody's is also as confident as I am about our economic outlook prospects. They state, while the rate of growth slowed with the onset of the national recession, the county's tax base is expected to continue experiencing broad and sustained development due to a good transportation network. Favorable business costs, aggressive development initiatives, and the availability of low-cost land for development projects. This speaks highly of our county. While the national dialogue has focused on the federal government, which finances much of its day-to-day operations with debt and carries a large fund balance deficit, we do not borrow for operations here in county government. Kenosha County operates on a balanced budget, and we have a surplus in our general fund. Standard & Poor's has indicated within the most recent report that its rating of Kenosha County is reflective of the maintenance of strong financial reserves paired with good managerial practices and moderate overall net debt burden with rapid amortization. Both Moody's and Standard & Poor's are familiar with our long-term plan for borrowing and our use of debt. Kenosha County's policy on capital finance all track with those recommended by the GFOA. For those of you new to the county board, I just want to point out that the county uses 10-year obligation notes to finance ongoing capital budget needs. As of our last borrowing, just over 87% of the county's debt was expected to be retired in the next 10 years. We have a debt policy set by this county board, and we are well below that. And we are far below the statutory debt limit. We have used less than 15% of our total available legal capacity to borrow. The county's debt was at its highest in 1999, and it has declined from there. We have faced some significant challenges in the past several years. And we could have pulled the sheets over our heads and taken it safe like some communities have, but we didn't. We had projects that we had to do. And with interest rates at historic lows, doing these projects now have had a lower impact on the taxpayers. We have used general obligation bonds extending 20 years to finance longer-term projects that have a life expectancy of at least 50 years. We could not wait any longer to address the desperate situation at the Joint Services 911 Dispatch Center. It was an accident waiting to happen. Just remember the Dane County incident that occurred, and I think that prompted us to move forward. Working with others can be difficult, but not working with others is very expensive. And the taxpayers are getting a top-notch service with less cost than most other communities that don't have this type of cooperative arrangement. As a result, this was the most fiscally responsible community option, in part because we chose to do this partnership with the city. The intergovernmental agreement was a benefit to the public safety and an overall savings to the taxpayer, no matter how long it took. That was a joke line there. By not shifting the cost to the city, the entire community saved at least $2 million by avoiding the cost of duplicated services and infrastructure, and will save hundreds of thousands of dollars in operations in the future while providing a state-of-the-art public safety system for our citizens. Special thanks to Chairman Gentz, former chairs Clark and Molinaro for their deep involvement in getting an equitable and functional IGA adopted with an addition built onto the public safety building for our law enforcement, our families, and anyone who calls 911 in our county. As you may know, law enforcement and the courts make up about 57% of our tax levied budget. 43% is for the Sheriff's Department proper. Just shy of 2/3 of that is used for both of our jails. And 14% is the court system, including the 8th Circuit Court branches, the new Veterans Court and the Drug and Alcohol Court, as well as the 2 court commissioners and the Clerk of Circuit Court, which handles the jury selection, probate, restraining orders, small claims, juvenile intake, as well as other services. The inscription on the courthouse, which was built in 1925, is erected to the cause of just and capable government. When I took this office, parts of the historic courthouse were literally crumbling. Thanks to those on the Public Works and Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee, as well as the leadership on the board who provided the support to properly restore the jewel of our county and preserve it for generations to come. And for those of you who are new, you will truly appreciate this courthouse as you go around the state and our nation looking at other courthouses. It is truly a gem. While remembering the past is important, we need to continue to look to the future. And I'm happy to announce tonight that after several years of planning, conceptualizing, and having the fortitude to move forward, affordable, high-speed internet access will soon be available in the village of Bristol and the town of Paris, and will be county-wide by this fall. Where we had 30% of our geography and our population unable to get affordable, high-speed internet, we now will be the first county in the state to take a project like this to completion. And what does that all mean? It means for those of you who don't remember life before the high-speed internet, do you remember that, Supervisor Johnson? All right, just checking. We had the dreaded dial-up, and those of you who aren't internet savvy, it's kind of like taking a drink, and when it's hot out, you take a big cold iced tea, and you have a drink with a very tiny straw. It's very slow, or you don't get any at all. And just like you have very slow streaming of videos, or you have pictures of your grandchildren coming through, but you just can't quite get them there, or you get part of them. With broadband, that straw turns into a fire hose, and that will quench the thirst for information, knowledge, and new business opportunities. And why is this important? I think you all know why it's important. First and foremost, it's critical for public safety. We will no longer have dead zones where law enforcement officers and fire and rescue workers are sometimes unable to receive or send data. I want to thank Sheriff Dave Beth. I don't know if he's here tonight. I think he was out, had another function, for his strong support of this important public safety project. Clearly, that was the backbone of moving this project forward. I also want to thank the county board and very strong encouragement by former Chairman Molinaro for the foresight to build upon that public safety infrastructure and partner with HireCom, a private company, to address the county-wide high-speed internet access for homes, schools, and businesses. Broadband is critical in education, and it is a proven economic asset. A recent study completed by the Public Policy Institute in California shows that the employment growth rates are about 6.5% higher in communities that have between 1 and 3 broadband providers compared to areas with no providers. The same report indicates that the unemployment rate with multiple providers is lower than their counterparts with no broadband access. And the average pay is higher in those broadband-served areas. That's no surprise. That's why we made this investment. That's why it's important for Kenosha County. This infrastructure sets the groundwork for economic development and educational growth all across this county. It addresses a growing achievement gap issue and creates a larger incentive for our young people to remain or move back to our community. I can tell you firsthand that if there are areas of the county where you can't get online, I have an 18 and 20-year-old, they aren't moving to that area. They need to be hooked up, they want to be fast, and they want to be going. So we have now opened up the rest of the county for that type of development where young people will live, work, and raise a family, and also areas that will now be able to have businesses expand or start. Other important investment in economic development was the High Impact Fund in partnership with the Kenosha Area Business Alliance. The first recipient of that fund is a locally grown Bradshaw Medical, but the real beneficiary will be Kenosha County as the company expands and adds 80 to 100 advanced manufacturing jobs to our community. Our strong and continued partnership with CAVA has netted other economic wins. Among the investments in new or expanded operations are the following: Allied Plastics, a custom thermoforming forming manufacturer. Catalyst Exhibits, a trade show exhibitor, exhibit designer and manufacturer. Offsite LLC, which offers data services and disaster recovery solutions. Wilmot Mountain, a recreational ski facility which added a marvelous winter tubing hill. And X10 Industries, a plastic injection molder. Wisconsin has the second largest concentration of manufacturing in the United States. Southeast Wisconsin ranks number 2 among the national top metros for manufacturing employment. And there are 200 manufacturing establishments in Kenosha County, employing 6,600 people, making it one of our top industry sectors. While we continue to work to diversify our county and the economy within the county, we also need to recognize our continued strong presence of manufacturing and support the growth of that. Tonight, I want to recognize another great idea that came from the county board. Supervisor David Hallman brought forward the Foreclosure Mediation program to our attention. At no cost to the county, this program is helping people who are on the verge of losing their homes to foreclosure and a chance to modify their loans in cooperation with the lender. This program has been far more successful than we thought when we first started it. Here's the most recent statistics that from July 1, 2011 until May 8, 2012, there were 159 total applications for mediation, 96 from Kenosha, 63 from Racine County. It is our hope that an economic upswing will make this program no longer necessary. But for now, people appreciate having this opportunity to stay in their home. Our summer youth employment program, which provides more than 200 at-risk youth, with an opportunity to work, will begin again next month. This program has helped reduce the amount of gang activity on Kenosha streets and has taught teens the valuable lesson of a hard day's work and the reward of a job well done and a paycheck. And an interesting note on that program, more of those at-risk youth have gone on to full-time gainful employment in the private sector than have dropped off or been let go or didn't show up. So it's definitely had a positive impact on those youth. The success of the summer youth program shows that decreasing our looking at our secure detention data, in 2008, we spent $860,000 in juvenile secure detention. In 2010, it dropped to $225,000. Just phenomenal. It wasn't all Kenosha County. It's the Kenosha Sheriff's Department, Kenosha Police Department, the Boys and Girls Club, Kenosha Unified School District, West OSHA, and other partners that played a big role in creating a fabric of a safety net and encouragement to help people who have made a mistake to try to turn the corner to right their ways. And I want to thank this board for their ongoing support of this prevention program. Speaking of county board supervisors, I want to recognize a former county board supervisor who used to serve, well, not here, but over there at the old chambers, and then went on to the next chapter of her life as our Register of Deeds. Louise Principe has decided to retire at the end of this year, and I want to thank her for her service, and I know she's looking forward to another chapter of her life, and she's been a dear friend to many, a dear friend to me, and a confidant, and we both know that those nighttime calls from Senator Joe Andrea giving us advice early on were always well heeded. I think we all ought to give it up for Louise Principe. Over the last several years, I leaned on Louise pretty heavily to put together the Land Information Office with her office, and that will have us have savings of over $150,000 a year, increased efficiencies, and set us on a trajectory for a lot of technological advances that helps the public, the building community, and thank you, Louise, for all your extra efforts. County government does so many great things every day. Sometimes you don't hear about them, or we just don't mention them enough. The County Victim Witness Program is one of those programs that quietly helps adults and children when they are facing the most difficult challenges. In 2011, the Victim Witness Program facilitated the collection and dispersal of more than $148,000 in restitution for victims of crime. They met with or talked with 2,279 victims and assisted in some other way 3,759 victims and witnesses. Of those that they assisted, 226 were children involved in abuse or sexual assault. They do all this with a staff of 4. I want to thank them and their leadership behind District Attorney Bob Zaff for the valuable work they do. Thank you for all your work you do, Bob. Thank you. Brookside Care Center received a rare honor for a public nursing home by receiving a 5-star rating, acknowledging what many of us already knew. It was one of the best nursing homes in the state of Wisconsin, and it's among the best in the nation. It was mentioned as being one of the best in a story in U.S. News and World Report. And Brookside accomplished this while over the last 6 to 8 years, or 6 to 8 years ago, it was $2.9 million on the levy, and now it is at 0 in the 2012 budget. $0 for a top-notch public nursing home. I know there's some people in the back from Brookside. Congratulations to our team at Brookside. We're all very proud of you, management, employees, everyone. Thank you. Been a lot more work and a lot of change, but it's really been fulfilling and worthwhile. Thank you. Congratulations are also in order for our Kenosha County Child Support Agency. They received 2 state awards from the State Child Support Organization, the awards for outstanding child support performance and the reduction of unproductive arrearage cases, which has been significant as we have decreased some of the personnel in that office. Darlene Sandberg retired after many years, and a lot of the interstate cooperative agreements we have are because of her initiative and her team, and that's making it a lot easier for those who are raising families who need those child support checks. Ron Rogers, the Director of Kenosha County Division of Children and Family Services, received the prestigious 2012 Commissioner's Award from the Administration of Children, Youth, and Families in Washington, D.C. The award recognizes individuals across the nation who have made outstanding contributions in promoting safety and the well-being of children and families in their community, and we thank Ron Rogers for that. And last but not least, we have Dave Gertson, our Finance Director, who was recognized for his long service to SWIB, State of Wisconsin Investment Board, which has, since he has left, put a scholarship in his honor. Thank you, Dave. You will now inspire generations of business students to come. Thank you for all your work, Dave. We have a number of internal champions like that those of you on the committees know about, hear about. You get reports on this, but sometimes the rest of the public and the board don't get to hear about them. So I felt compelled to bring a few of those examples of some of those people here tonight. We are continuing as a county to continue to improve the quality of life issues across Kenosha County in the most cost-effective manner we can, many times partnering with state and federal government entities and towns and villages. This work will begin this summer on renovating the dam at Petrifying Springs and making a long-needed improvements to the roads. We're also moving forward on creating a trail connecting our park in Silver Lake with the village of Silver Lake. And that's been received quite well by Supervisor Decker and the Village Town Board. After receiving a grant last year, we'll be putting together a comprehensive bicycle facilities plan for all of Kenosha County. Our 3 dog parks continue to thrive, and we'll soon be announcing another $12,500 donation for the off-leash dog park at Old Settlers Park. In other infrastructure work, the Highway Division has nearly 24 repaving programs and road improvement projects in collaboration with various town, village, and state and federal government. The state of Kenosha County is strong because we continue to work together to find more efficient and cost-effective ways to do what county government is here to do. County government does what you and your neighbors can't do for yourself, like providing quick and safe cleanup to the last summer's winter storm or windstorm. I can tell you right here tonight that I'm bullish on the continued economic success of Kenosha, the quality of our lifestyle in Kenosha, and our ability to attract new businesses and new residents to our community. I personally look forward to working with all of you as we move county government forward and face our challenges together. And may God bless Kenosha County. Thank you. Very good. David, appreciate that, man. Terry, thank you. Take care, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive Kreuser. At this time, we'll open our meeting up to citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. We'll let everything clear out before we... Okay, citizens' comments first to the podium, please. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you. Please announce your name and address for the record. Hold on. Hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Campion. I live at 11303 232nd Avenue. I want to congratulate, first of all, everyone that was reelected in this last campaign for supervisor. I also want to thank the first-time supervisors. You may have seen it's a little different than what you thought for the first couple of meetings, but you'll get used to it. For those new to the board, I want to introduce myself. I am a town board supervisor for Salem, and yes, you're going to put up with me for another year as I've been appointed as the liaison from the town to the county board. During last night's meeting, we also reaffirmed our commitment to youth and governance. We have a number of personnel, a number of students that have applied for it, and we're going through a review process now. We're looking at the county as the master plan for youth and governance, and we're hoping to carry it on at the town level. I also want to thank Ms. Kim Bruning for bringing this forward to the town. I think it's a very good opportunity to bring youth involved with it, and we're looking forward to going forward. I also want to thank everyone with the board at the moment, and I'm looking forward to working with you the next year. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Edward Sadlowski. My address is 4400 North Juniper Drive in Janesville. I'm a staff representative with Wisconsin Council 40 AFSCME. We represent several bargaining units, employees here with the county, and I'm a staff representative. Here to speak specifically about Resolutions 6 and 7, which appear on tonight's agenda. I'm not sure from a political sense what we can all agree to in the last 15 months, what's happened in our state, but I think we can all agree that there's been some profound changes that public sector workers have experienced as they get up every morning and report to work. The last 15 months have seen confusion, anxiety, some desperation, apprehension, and really a major distraction in workers' lives. As it relates to items 6 and 7, I'm just going to ask on behalf of the union and its members that the county reconsider the terminology that appears in the resolution. Notice be given to the county to terminate the collective bargaining agreements, specifically with Local 990 at the Courthouse and Social Services and Local 1392 at Brookside. The duration clauses of the collective bargaining agreement, which are in place through the end of this calendar year, afford the county to serve notice to modify those agreements. We want to make sure that everyone understands the unions aren't going anywhere. Whatever the outcome is on June 5th, from a political sense, Webster's defines terminate as something that's coming to an end. The word modify is to make less extreme or to bring about some changes. Act 10 and Act 32, some parts of it have been found to be unconstitutional by a federal judge, specifically as it relates to the dues deduction and the annual recertification process. Walker's Act 10 and Act 32 affords the parties the continued ability to sit down and negotiate around base wages. And again, it's the union's intention to engage the county in that fashion. So if you modify these resolutions, whether this is some pro forma terminology, we want to make sure that there's no mixed message going out to the workers here in Kenosha County, specifically at the locations identified and at play here. I want to give you a sense of history as well. As you may or may not know, our great state was the first in the nation to pass collective bargaining law for public sector employees in 1959. Did a little bit of research. Local 990, the Kenosha County Courthouse Employees Union, was chartered in 1955, 4 years before that law was put in place. Local 1392 at Brookside was called the Kenosha County Hospital and Sanatorium Employees Union. That local was chartered on January 18th, 1955. Again, 4 full years before the right to bargain. So again, I've been here a very short period of time in my role as a staff representative. I'm very proud to say that the folks that I've met, the dealings that I've been privileged to be a part of with the county have really led me to the conclusion that there's a very mature, respectful relationship that exists here between the county administration and its employees. And I'm just encouraging everyone to stay the course along those lines. It goes a long way, again, to diminish that anxiety and the concerns that folks have. So that's the request this evening. Thank you all for your public service as well. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Good evening, all. My name is Louis Fergani. I live at 4526 29th Avenue here in Kenosha. I'll start off by saying thank you for your attention to the stewardship in these historic buildings. They've been a little bit overdue, but now I'm glad that that deterioration that happens in all buildings, and in people too for that matter, has been addressed. I'm here to talk about a couple of things in my remaining moments. The breastbeating over the non-attainment area. I keep hearing headlines, it's not our fault, it's not our fault. They've been talking, the media has been talking about that. I'm part of the media for 20 years. Let's take the lemons and make a little lemonade. Chicago wants to be in the non-attainment area because they get federal funds because of that nature of the non-attainment for mass transit. Are we applying for those? Something to be addressed, and I wanted to tell you something about mass transit specifically here in Kenosha County, and that is the Western Kenosha County Transit System. I was here with the old county board addressing a problem. It didn't get anywhere, so I'll address the new county board, and that is that it's a wonderful idea, Western Kenosha County Transit. It really is. The concept is great. Unfortunately, when it was implemented, and since then, Western Kenosha County Transit has gone south. Literally. Goes to Antioch downtown, goes to Lake Geneva downtown, and the closest it gets to the city of Kenosha is to the extreme western edge of the residential district, which is Green Bay Road and 75th Street. It does not come into the city, but the city and county are paying for it. I want to repeat that. Western Kenosha County Transit serves downtown Antioch and downtown Lake Geneva. I saw it pass the Riviera Ballroom a couple weeks ago. And doesn't even come where the downtown Kenosha is, and yet we're paying to bring our Kenoshans, Kenosha Countyans, to shop in Walworth County and in Antioch. We're paying, and I can't find exactly how much it is despite all my efforts through the Freedom of Information Act, exactly how much we're paying, but the closest I can come up with is right around $40,000 a year to fund that out of county funds, which of course is city funds. We're paying that to take our Kenoshans shopping in Illinois and in Lake Geneva. How about, for a wild idea, we reverse the concept. We start out in the morning in Antioch and in Walworth County and Lake Geneva and bring them into downtown Kenosha. Would that be a bad idea? I brought that up a year or two ago, and of course it didn't get anywhere. Now, I'm like all of you. I'm all for public transportation. Well, nearly all of you. This is necessary for the future of the county. You heard the state of the county. You heard our emphasis on transportation. There's a flaw there with public transportation. Unfortunately, our one county-operated system is running backwards. All I'm saying is, stop taking people to shop out of state. And by the way, the destination in Walworth County and in Antioch is Walmart. They're going to Walmart. When I talked to management there, they said, well, that's where people want to go. Okay, that's fine. We have a Walmart in Kenosha County. The city buses are quitting serving the Walmart in summers. Kenosha County Transit will stop doing that because it was a bad idea. They're not contributing anything, either as Walmart in Antioch or Walmart in Lake Geneva. So if anybody missed my point, I say do something immediately before we lose any more dollars out of Kenosha and drop them off in Walworth and in Illinois. Now, it's a great system, it's a great concept, but if you want to do anything with Western Kenosha County Transit, either stop the service or stop funding it, or take people where they should go. And believe me, there's a lot to see and do right down here. You can't prove that by the passengers on Western Kenosha County Transit. They never see Kenosha, even though Kenosha gets to pay to have them shop and take dollars in Illinois and Walworth County. That concludes my address. I want to thank you all for your kind attention and wish you a pleasant and productive evening.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? Citizens' comments are closed. We'll now go to Supervisor Reports. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Those wanting to go to the WCA conference will have till tomorrow to get that squared away. Okay, we held it open. We said that Friday was the deadline, but I wanted to make one more announcement, so anybody that does want to go, please see the clerk by tomorrow. The second thing is I know that there's been some trouble getting packets out in the county. They aren't coming till Monday, Tuesday. That can be a little bit of a problem. They are here. If there's any way to come and pick them up, we're looking for alternative ways to do that. But Mary will have come in if you want to make arrangements to come in on that Friday or even Monday to pick those up. So if you have any other questions or concerns, myself and Mary will on that. Those are the two things I have. Now we'll go to Supervisor Reports. Supervisor Bruning?
There it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We took our, PDEC took their first land tours last week, and while we didn't go from one end of the county to the other, I can assure you that it was close. I have a couple new supervisors on there who were a little amazed at how big our county truly is once we get out there and start driving around. It was interesting. We have had some map amendment changes through the comprehensive plan that came before us. We have a certified survey map that came before us. We have all sorts of fun things that are coming up in the county for planning and development, so it'll be interesting the next couple years. Also, WASAC is coming up in June. This is the Wisconsin Association Counties of Extension Committees, and if anyone is interested in going, this is in June. They are having the reception at Lambeau Field this year, along with 2 days of meetings up there regarding extension education, and you can see the chairman for that if anyone is interested in attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Judiciary and Law Committee met on May 7th. There was a lengthy discussion regarding the jailer's holiday pay and work schedule. The committee is planning on obtaining all the facts regarding this issue before proceeding with any recommendation to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no more lights. Clerk?
County Executive Appointments, John E. Calamari to serve on the Kenosha County Commission on Aging.
Human Services Committee.
Sandra Jean Reese to serve on the Kenosha County Commission of Aging.
Refer to Human Services Committee.
Old business, second reading to required from the Human Service Committee, an ordinance to repeal and recreate Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County. Hallman, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Arrington, yes. Decker, yes. Montemero, yes. Nudo, yes.
Supervisor Holman.
Move Ordinance 2.
I'm sorry. All right. Just moving it along. Sorry. Supervisor Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an ordinance from our Health Division to repeal and recreate Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County. This is the Environmental Health and Food Ordinance that sets the license and application fees for restaurants, hotels, motels, campgrounds, public swimming pools, tattoos, and body piercing establishments. The license renewals are sent out during the first week of May, and the Division of Health issues over 1,000 licenses annually. The late fees, which have not been changed in over 10 years, are increasing from $50 to $100. This $100 fee is in line with other counties, including Racine, Manitowoc, Appleton, and Dane County. The temporary event inspection fees, which also have not been changed in over 10 years, are increasing from $20 to $30. I believe there should be a representative from the department if anyone has questions.
Does that conclude your announcements? Okay. Supervisor Molinaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. Well, first of all, one housekeeping issue here, potentially, that we can get back to at some point on page 16-7. Nope, wait. Where was it? 16-8. Which would be 16.033E is an Edward. It is written in as $146. The correction states it's changed to $145. I don't know which is correct, but that'll that'll need to be cleared up. We can come back to that. My question I have through the chair to Chairman Hallman, my understanding is that the fees increase somewhere in the 2.9% range per year or per review in general, and that you have increased. You noted that several of the reinspection fees have not been increased for 10 years, and those have gone up. They're in line with other counties. Question I have is, have any of these fees, costs, reinspection, licenses, etc., been looked at in a similar fashion as we did in the Planning and Development Office, which is to be reflective of staff time associated with any of the various approvals, etc.?
Supervisor Holman, want to answer that? Staff?
I'd like to defer to staff. In fact, that was a question that the committee had.
For the staff time for inspection which was really difficult to do because of the distance and time for each establishment. But in the case of the reinspection or the late fees, that was on how much time we put in to collect those fees. And that one doesn't get changed every 2.5% a year. Those have been the standard. But we have been starting to look into the inspection fees and how long it does take us to do, the time and money amount. So we have not looked at that at this point.
Well, so, every community that I shouldn't say every, because I'm sure that's somewhat of an overstatement, but a significant number of the communities I work in, any fees associated with development, licensing, etc., are typically fees that are allocated based on staff time to execute reviews, permit grants, inspections, etc. Pleasant Prairie, I've done quite a bit of work there, obviously. You pay an escrow or put money up in escrow. Every hour that every employee spends on your development, you are billed for. City of Kenosha readjusted all of their inspection fees several years back, tied everything into, as best they could, to staff time and the cost for doing business. The rationale behind that is one that I think is strong, and that is those who are utilizing the staff time, utilizing the offices, are then paying their fair share. If our approach is to simply raise fees at 2.5% a year, I would suspect that there are some years we undershoot significantly. There's some years we may overshoot significantly. To me, that approach isn't the approach that we ought to be looking at, certainly if you're talking about 2012. This is, with the systems we have in place to track the effort, track the time, etc., I think clearly, and particularly if you're looking at certain fees that we haven't adjusted in 10 years, something has been amiss. So unless, and it doesn't sound like it is, I'm being told that these fees are have been analyzed in such a way that we are covering a significant portion, if not all, of our staff time to execute them or to deliver them. My recommendation is going to be to refer this back to committee for further study and come forward with the support that these fees are in fact justifiable based on the time that we are spending as staff in Kenosha County. I so move.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to refer it back to committee, and it's been seconded.
And on that issue, we heard from Chairman Holman, the committee chairman, that the question was raised. If the answer that was given, and I'm not suggesting that the answer was, it doesn't appear to me to be that we're certain of necessarily how these fees were arrived at. So if there's a further response through the chairman, I'll entertain that.
Okay, it's been moved to refer it back. Narrow second by Supervisor Brunig. At this point, I will allow staff to respond to that, and then we'll debate.
For the late fees, which is the crust of this, that has been looked at staff time. The first 2 weeks of July, the staff devotes most of its time to this case of collecting the late fees and the license fees. We average over 60 establishments a year that fail to send in their fees on time, so we do have, the time that it takes for us to collect this money. We do have that documented. As for the license fees, I know we go up 2.5% a year, and that is going to be our next job, is to find out exactly, we keep track of how much time every inspection makes, and we document that. And we've been doing that for years. So we're going to try to bring our license fees up to the proper standards. I took this job about in February this past year. So the two glaring issues was our inspection fee and our late fees, and that was about all we had enough time to collect the information to go forward with. Now this next year, we're going to put our heads together and we're going to look at all our licenses to make sure those are brought up to proper standards, because those have lagged behind.
Any questions of the staff before we start our debate? Okay, at this point, Supervisor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm opposed to referring this back to committee. I think what has been stated here by the staff person makes sense. The issue is a way that will take them some time to do, and I think it's one which is being considered by them. But more important than that is simply this. Do you want to make all of these fees so expensive that it makes it difficult for businesses to operate in Kenosha County? One can talk about, well, we're going to make them pay this, that, and the other thing. Does that encourage the small business person to locate here, maintain their business here, or is it discouraging? There are a lot of small businesses here in Kenosha County that are just hanging on by their fingertips. And this is one of those that it may not be a break-even, but it is one that's there to protect the public interest on the one hand, but on the other hand, to encourage the small business person to operate that business here. I'm not in favor of having fees that are so difficult to meet for the average business person here. Makes it just another expense which may tip them over the edge. And if you take a look at the number of small businesses in this city and this county that have closed, it's an astonishing number. I haven't seen statistics, but I see vacant storefronts. I see boarded up buildings. So think about that when you say, well, they ought to be paying for this, that, and the other thing. I think the staff is doing a very considered job on this, looking at the various issues. They have a 2.5% increase. It's modest. We probably aren't paying, they probably aren't paying their way with these kinds of fees. They seem to be modest fees, but I think that the idea of having a modest fee has a good public policy underpinning, and I'm going to support the way it is. I don't see any reason to refer it back to committee.
Thank you. Supervisor Bruning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Supervisor Rose's point, it looks like we are increasing all of these fees on here without any investigation. So getting back to what Supervisor Rose was saying, why are we increasing them if we haven't done the work yet? And that's what I think that's why it needs to go back to committee. Thank you.
Supervisor Brunig. Supervisor Molinaro.
We're talking about fees that are $30, $40, $111, $100, $118, $420. We're not talking about deal breakers here. We're talking about fees that are standard and customary to open a business, small business or otherwise. Obviously, I am supportive of the small business owner, supportive of economic development, et cetera. But at some point, if we were talking about the golf courses, I suspect there'd be many in the room who would be all over this issue because the golfer isn't paying his fair share. But now when we're talking about a tattoo parlor or a restaurant or a bar or anybody else, now it's okay for the taxpayer to pick up their portion of it. Well, which is it? And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Melitik has only been in the position for a while. We have the right guy there. It's clear that he's already started to put the effort into it. You've got data collected over the last couple of years. You've done what I say, not you personally, but collectively, the committee and the staff has done half the job, right? We've increased a certain number of fees to match the cost, reinspection fees, et cetera. If you've got the data over the last couple of years, what's the rush to increase these fees right now? The 2.5% on $30 or $42 or $118, take the time, get the fee to where it ought to be, and bring it forward. Unless I'm being told tonight that there's a time constraint, I think it's rational to send it back and say, the first half, the increase of the reinspection fees, you did all the homework, and it makes sense to me. The second half, I just want you to finish the effort. And if it wasn't done because there's a time constraint, I'd like to hear that this evening. If not, I'm going to encourage Mr. Melitik to continue to do what he set out to do because it is the right thing to do. And then at the end of the day, you're talking about a fee that makes sense for the effort, like every other community has been doing for an awfully long time. I'm surprised that these fees are what they are in many respects. Now, if it means that you get the referral gives you the opportunity to understand what those numbers are. And if that means a $400 fee has to go to $800, then I'm in full agreement with Supervisor Rose. It doesn't make sense to pile on necessarily or to make it a business unfriendly environment. But if it means a $400 fee goes to $450 to cover the actual cost or as close to it as possible, that makes entire sense to me. As a small business owner, that makes entire sense to me. But to bring it forward and say, well, we've typically done 2.5% every year, with the exception of the multitude of categories that we've ignored for a decade, I don't understand that rationale. I don't understand where the discussion went in the committee if that was the approach. We've ignored these for 10 years. We're going to jack them up because they match Racine County and Walworth County and the other counties. Maybe they're out of line. I don't know that. How does that match up to their staff time? I'll bet at least one of the 4 counties that were mentioned, if not all 4 counties, put that effort in to understand how those fees match up to their staff time. Doesn't sound like we necessarily did. We realized we were in line with them, and that's good. We should be after 10 years of not doing anything with them. But then the balance, we're going to say 2.5% just seems fair. It may be fair, but I don't have the backup to do that. So refer it back to committee. Spend the time unless there's an urgency to get this done. If not, there isn't any harm in doing that due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Molinaro. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to try to clear a little bit of this up if I could. The issue at hand is the late fees, not the initial licensing fees, but late fees when people do not renew on time. That is what we are talking about changing here. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the concern of certainly myself and the committee and the chair of this board that was expressed in committee is what does it cost us to do those initial inspections? At the time, the department didn't have that data available to give us a quote. They're still working on it, and they're saying they're going to come around and analyze those costs and report back to the committee. I'm glad to hear it. That's great. I was afraid that question would come up on this floor as it did. But the issue that we're dealing with is the late fees, not initial inspection fees. It was the hope of the department that they would be able to have this passed tonight through this board to capture some excess revenue for this county. That's why this is before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Rose.
business friendly. Is this the time to raise fees?
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. This time there's no more lights on.
Roll call requested.
Listed on the motion to refer back to. Okay, well, we got to. No, we've had enough of those. But we do need to figure out what the. I'm fine with that. Fails to refer back to committee. We will.
Roll call requested.
Roll call request. Discussion on the Molinaro.
First issue, I'll go back to the point I made on page. Where was it? I closed it here. Well, now I circled a whole bunch of them. 16-8, and you need to clarify as to whether that's 146 or 145. And that's parent E on the top half of page 16-8, related to does not engage in food processing but does sell potentially hazardous foods. I need to know if you can sell potentially hazardous foods for 146 or 145. Seems like a deal to sell hazardous foods. I'm looking at a corrected version here. I guess I would just offer the friendly amendment, or if you want it as an actual motion, that it be 145 because it clearly states 146.
The maker of the motion. Okay. The mic is on. I just have to.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Okay, how's that? That's fine, okay. Supervisor Holman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say I do appreciate Supervisor Molinaro's inquiry and his hard work, and we'll work with the department, the Human Services Committee, and get to the bottom of his question and bring it back to this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Holman. Seeing no other lights, the roll call has been requested on the original motion. You good to go? Yeah. That motion passes. Continue on with the next item of business.
New business ordinance, first reading to required. From Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, an ordinance to amend Chapter 12 of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County, Wisconsin, with reference to zoning regarding proposed amendments to the Kenosha County General Zoning and Shoreland Floodplain Zoning Ordinance adopting the 100-year dam failure floodplain. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Galitsky, yes. Four, from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, an ordinance to amend Chapter 12 of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County, Wisconsin, with reference to zoning regarding proposed amendments to the Kenosha County General Zoning and Shoreland Floodplain Zoning Ordinance amending statutory references, department and committee name references, permit future non-substantive text changes, and update the floodplain zoning sections and definitions to adopt the new flood insurance rate maps, firms, and flood insurance study. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Galitsky, yes. Ordinance 5, one reading, from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding St. Lacovas Retreat Center Incorporated owner John Bellordis, agent, requesting rezoning from A1 Agricultural Preservation District, C2 Upland Resource Conservancy District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, and PR1 Park Recreational District to A1 Agricultural Preservation District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, C2 Upland Resource Conservancy District, and PR1 Park Recreational District in the town of Brighton. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Galitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 5.
It's been moved by Supervisor Brunig, second by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. St. Jacobos is located on the southwest corner of 224th Avenue and 9th Street. The rezoning would allow for the athletic fields to be relocated to provide for the development of the lodge, bunk cottages, and chapel. The town of Brighton recommended approval of the request.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. This time, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Ordinance 6, from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding North Beach LLC owner Tom Fott, Capper and Associates agent, requesting rezoning from B2 Community Business District and R4 Urban Single Family Residential District to R4 Urban Single Family Residential District in the towns of Wheatland and Randall. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Galitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 6.
Ordinance has been moved by Supervisor Brunig, second by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These properties are located on the southwest and northeast sides of County Highway F, approximately 0.18 miles southeast of 399th Avenue. The rezoning would allow for the existing tavern and motel to be redeveloped for residential use. The towns of Wheatland and Randall recommended approval of the request.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Ordinance 7, from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, Mills Enterprise LLC owner requesting rezoning from R4 Urban Single Family Residential District to R4 Urban Single Family Residential District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District in the town of Salem. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Galitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 7.
Ordinance number 7 has been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Dodge. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the south side of 84th Street, approximately 0.06 miles east of 245th Avenue. The rezoning is considered a map amendment to reflect current field conditions. The town of Salem did not submit a recommendation on this request because their land planner considered it a simple C1 boundary update on a delineated wetland already protected by a deed restriction and shown on a subdivision plat.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Ordinance 8 from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding St. Lacovas Retreat Center Incorporated owner John Baladoris, agent, requesting an amendment to the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan map for Kenosha County, 2035, map 65, from Farmland Protection District to Park and Recreational District in the town of Brighton. Brunick, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunick.
Move ordinance number 8.
Ordinance number 8 has been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Brunick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. St. Yakavos is located on the southwest corner of 224th Avenue and 9th Street. The ordinance would approve a comprehensive plan amendment from farmland protection to park and recreational. The town of Brighton recommended approval of the request. Also, in case anyone is wondering why the ordinance is coming, the comprehensive plan amendment is coming after the other piece of this is because the way that these are read on the board floor.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Resolutions. One reading from Chairman Jeffrey Gentz and Judiciary and Law Committee, a resolution to approve the appointment of Anita Johnson to serve on the Joint Services Board. Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington, abstain. Anita Johnson, yes. Angelina Montemero, yes. Noble, excused.
Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move resolution number 1.
Supervisor Esposito has moved resolution number 1, seconded by Supervisor Ron Johnson. Supervisor Esposito.
This resolution is the approval of Supervisor Anita Johnson to serve on the Joint Services Board. If you have read Supervisor Johnson's appointment profile, it speaks for itself. Supervisor Johnson is more than qualified for this position. She brings knowledge, dedication, strong communication, and negotiation skills to the table. These qualities will make her a great addition to the Joint Services Board. The committee voted unanimously to approve the appointment, with one abstention due to Supervisor not having time to review the appointment profile. I urge your unanimous support in this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Supervisor Brunick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to speak on this. I do not have any issue with Supervisor Johnson. I do, however, have an issue with the procedure of this appointment. So far this term, I have seen, well, let's back up a little bit. On my 6 years of the board, I have seen a lot of bullying and intimidation. My first night, I was called, and my first night on the board, and was asked not to speak my first term. I was also asked as a female never to speak on the board floor. The bullying and intimidation, the threats, the buying of votes, and the threats of losing friendship need to stop here. No one should be telling anyone else how to vote on anything. And Mr. Chairman, I am disappointed in the way that you handled this because this was not proper procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunick. Supervisor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first time that I know of where a appointment to the one of the boards or the committees of a county supervisor has caused any sort of controversy. The appointment by the chairman of a county supervisor to one of our committees or boards has always been a very, very routine thing. Most of the time, those appointments have not gone to committee. There's been a motion from the floor to suspend the rules. The motion has been passed unanimously without debate. An immediate vote has been taken on that appointment, and it has been confirmed, I recall, without a dissent in all of the terms that I have served on the county board. And the reason, I think, is a good reason. When people elect you to the board, they believe that you are qualified. They believe that you are there to serve immediately, not after 2 terms or 3 terms or 4 terms or 10 terms, but immediately. And it becomes a matter of professional courtesy that that appointment is approved, and that has been the tradition of the county board, and I think it is a very good tradition that ought to be maintained. And that is true whether or not you happen to agree politically with the appointment or not, whether you belong to the same political party or not, or you share some of the same views of that supervisor or not. But it has a lot to do with the fact that the constituents have elected you. We respect that, and just as a matter of courtesy, we're going to support that because the constituents have elected you to serve on this county board, and we want to encourage supervisors to maintain good rapport with one another and deem that you can serve. And that has been always the tradition. I think it's a mistake to deviate from that position, and I hope that this evening, when that the debate not continue, that we respect what has become a very time-honored tradition continue, and that we unanimously support the appointment. She is quite qualified if you've looked here at the record, so I don't see what the issue is. And I would be making the same speech tonight, irrespective of who the supervisor might have been as the appointee of the chairman of the board to the Joint Services Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Molinaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, in committee I spoke against the appointment. I will tell you this evening that I will support the appointment here on the board floor. Supervisor Rose makes a very good point, but I want to make something clear. And I will also urge for a unanimous vote for Supervisor Johnson. However, as you know, Mr. Chairman, we've spoken quite often over the past year. My comments in opposition to the appointment at the committee was met with a rebuttal from you that indicated that Supervisor Johnson would be very supportive of the city. Therein lies the crux of the issue for me. You could look at the tape if you, I mean, I'm sure it's there. That was the statement that was made. She is, in your conversations, she is very supportive of the city. As a county board supervisor, an elected county board legislative member, I want Kenosha County to be first and foremost, period. And that ought to be the approach. And we'll hear more and we'll talk more about bridge builders and cooperation and all of that. Make no mistake, there has been a significant amount of cooperation over the years with the city of Kenosha and others. There's been significant opposition and hurdles to get over with the city of Kenosha and other units of government, and it will continue. You know I've shared with you my consternation over what I believe has been less than a solid fight for what is in the best interest of Kenosha County, understanding it is a cooperative effort and an intergovernmental cooperation with the city of Kenosha. I recognize that. At the end of the day, what I'm asking is that our representatives are there on behalf of Kenosha County first, and secondarily supportive of the city of Kenosha. You have members who have been appointed by the city who clearly do not take that approach on their side. I think you need to be prepared for it, and that's my expectation, and that's what we've talked about several times, and I'm going to say it again here tonight. That is the expectation. I think it should be the expectation of this entire board. With that, I will support Supervisor Johnson's appointment to that board. Thank you.
Thank you for your statements and opinions, Supervisor Molinaro. Supervisor Montemuro.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to make a comment on what Supervisor Bruning said. I also felt the same way, and I was also told for the first 6 months not to speak. We're here for 2 years. We're elected officials. We speak. And I will tell you this, from what I know about her credentials and meeting her, I strongly support Supervisor Johnson for this position. And I also think the city supports new alliances anyway. She is a new supervisor, but she's very well trained, and I think you made an excellent choice. And I really recommend that we unanimously support her tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Montemuro. Supervisor Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't going to speak on this tonight, but I will. I'm in favor of Supervisor Johnson's appointment to Joint Services. Certainly she is qualified, as many have said. I think that this is a good change for us. So often when people come into legislative bodies, it is difficult to work in areas where others have put so much time and attention. Rarely is there an area that is vacant where someone who is new with a different personality and different histories can come to the table and speak on behalf of not only necessarily their district, but certainly the county government as a body. And that's certainly what Supervisor Johnson will do in this capacity. I too, like other supervisors, reflect back on their first term. And it is difficult. And sometimes colleagues can be unkind in private and sometimes even in public. But I think what is important is that this is a significant change for us as a body in doing this, in bringing somebody new. And I'm glad to see that it is so visible a change for us. I also want to say sometimes in terms of supporting the city, I know we've had our differences with city government in the past and some certainly in the current. Sometimes support means the ability for a person to coddle dragon-like egos in order to get certain things done. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. For some, that's a learned skill. For others, it's an inherent talent. So we will see what will become of this, and I'm certain that Supervisor Johnson is up to the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Holman. Supervisor Rose.
When I was elected to the county board, someone told me that I shouldn't speak during the first term, and I didn't listen to that advice. That person's no longer here. He was defeated. I'm still here.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Noble.
I intend to support the nomination for Supervisor Johnson. However, I've always felt that every supervisor, when appointed by either the county executive or the chairman, should go before the committee, and I've always spoken in that regard. So for the new supervisors who heard about a time-honored tradition, this supervisor is always of the opinion that all supervisors, all appointments should go to committee, and if it ever gets discussed, you'll always hear me speak that way, no matter who the person is. So if it happens to be you, it's not against you, it's just the way I should feel it all. I just feel they all should go to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Noble. Seeing no other lights, roll call has been requested. Do you need to tell me when you're ready to go? Or are we ready to go now? Okay, the motion is to approve. All those in favor? Push your buttons. Let's see what happens. Okay, that motion passes. You know, I gotta work multiple mics.
Resolution 1 from Finance Administration Committee, a Resolution 2 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation promissory notes in an amount of approximately $3,350,000 for refunding purposes and providing for the sale of the notes. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
Move the resolution.
The resolution has been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
Thank you. This resolution before you is one to refund and authorize the issuance of general obligation notes in the amount of $3,350,000 for refunding purposes. In other words, this was a refinancing at a lower interest rate, which saves the county over $100,000. We have a standard at the Kenosha County Board that If the savings exceeds, is in the area of 20%, it's one that would be considered. The board has done this on a number of occasions. We've saved the county substantial sums of money over the years doing this refinancing.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no other lights, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
We would request a roll call, Mr. Chairman, I believe.
Okay, roll call is requested.
I believe it is required of...
He told me that I could just do... Go ahead. He is. Okay.
This particular vote is required just to be a majority vote, unlike many of our bond resolutions, according to Mr. Geertsen and Mike Harrigan. But, you know, roll call is always in order.
All right. So requested.
Roll call has been requested. On the motion? That motion passes.
Resolution 3 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution providing for the sale of not to exceed $2,810,000 general obligation county building bonds. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose?
I would move the resolution.
Motion's been, or the resolution's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Kohlmeyer. Supervisor Rose?
As the resolution explains, this is the providing for the sale of these bonds. This is the courthouse project. It's a 20-year bond. The total cost of the remodeling project was in approximately $6 million.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no other lights. Roll call has been requested. On the motion. Motion passes.
Resolution 4 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution providing for the sale of not to exceed $12,740,000 general obligation promissory notes. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose?
I would move the resolution.
Resolution's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Vice Chair Kubicki. Supervisor Rose?
Thank you. This resolution is the funding, the sale of general obligation notes in the total amount of $12,740,000 over a 10-year term. These will finance many of the capital projects authorized in the 2012 budget, such as roads, the list of capital items in the 2012 budget, the fiber program, the CABA High Impact Fund, and other specific things that if you want to take again and review the 2000 capital budget, you will see the specifics, but this is these are the capital items, and this is the sale of those bonds to finance.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no other discussion, roll call is requested. That resolution passes.
Resolution 5 from Finance Administration Committee and Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee, a resolution regarding FY12 Law Enforcement Justice Assistant Grant. Judiciary and Law, Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Angelina Montemiro, yes. Noble, excused. Finance Administration, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Aaron Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move resolution number 5.
It's been moved by Supervisor Esposito, seconded by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Esposito.
This resolution is a J grant for the Sheriff's Department in the sum of $36,050, half of which is applied to the Sheriff's Department, the other half goes to the City of Kenosha. It's used to purchase 6 automatic defibrillators for the public, some computer software for accident reconstruction, and flashlights for deputies. This resolution requires no funds from the general fund and will not require a local match of any funding or any additional tax levy dollars. I urge your approval on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no other discussion, this is a budget modification. We will need 2/3 vote. That resolution passes.
Resolution 6 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution authorizing a notice to be given of the desire of Kenosha County to terminate the collective bargaining agreement between Kenosha County and Local 990 Courthouse and Social Services Clerical. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move the resolution.
The resolution's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Kohlmeyer. Supervisor Rose.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the committee viewed this resolution as a rather routine type of resolution in conformity with the contract which is quoted in the resolution as well as state law. The committee is composed of people from different walks of life, including Mr. Fred, lifetime active in the labor movement, as well as Mr. Kubicki, who is also very active in organized labor. The committee did not view these resolutions of termination of the contract as any kind of political statement or any reflection on anything other than the fact that their action at committee level and at our board level this evening for this resolution and the following termination resolutions was anything other than one which was in conformity with the standard procedures outlined in the contract as well as state law. And therefore we would request and urge your support of the resolutions this evening.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Dodge.
Yes.
Nope, you just shut it off, Rick.
Wait, whoa, push the button first. I'm redoing it. Okay, now you're on.
I was one of the supervisors that wasn't told not to speak in my first 6 months. Maybe I should have been. Yesterday afternoon, I met with Corporation Counsel Bernie Vash, which included a conference call with Personnel Director Bob Riedel. In my summary of that 40-minute meeting with two more supervisors, my conclusion came out of that was that for all practical purposes, these contracts would end at their expiration per state statute, that'd be Act 10 and 32, whether we voted on them or not. Therefore, I feel it's not necessary to aggravate those employees with this resolution, and I plan to oppose them. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dodge. Supervisor Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the Corporation Counsel. Is there a problem if we were to amend wherever it says terminate to discontinue?
If you were going to change the word terminate to discontinue, I think they would probably mean the same thing.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to amend this, change terminate to discontinue.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Supervisor Holman, seconded by Supervisor Dodge to change the word terminate to discontinue. On the motion. Supervisor Molinaro.
I'm certainly not in favor of the amendments. It's like telling my daughter she's grounded or she can't go out for the weekend. At the end of the day, you're not telling her anything she doesn't know. So I certainly don't support it. The reason for pushing my light originally is to suggest that we take 5, 6, and 7 collectively and cast one vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Molinaro.
Well, now I'm confused. So do we have a second motion to eliminate them or just put them together? Do we have to?
The motion on the floor is to just change that word. That's what we're going to vote on first, and then we will go back to the motion as it was stated originally or as it was amended.
Then could I, Chairman, ask a question? Would that make it more similar to what the specialist from Janesville was saying for this contract? Would that satisfy what you were saying, sir?
We have Mr. Riedel here. Would you like to ask him that? Or?
No, remember,
Okay.
Our speaker was very clear that this is an insult to our potential people. And I was curious if by changing the word to discontinue, if that would make that motion more palatable. Because I also agree that these should not even be on the docket for right now. But I'd like to know if that's what he was referring to when he said change the wording. Can he answer that?
No, he said modify, so
Modify.
no.
So terminate would be modify. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Montemuro. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not of the opinion we should modify this proposition as it is to the word modify, but I would like to get some further clarification through the chair, if it's appropriate, through Mr. Riedel. Can we have your interpretation or thoughts on this matter, Mr. Riedel?
Hold on, okay. Now go. I had to get you fired up. Well, I didn't. Your mic.
Thank you. The term terminate is used because that is the language specific in Section 24.1 of the contract. And so that's why the term terminate is selected. It certainly in no way is meant to offend the unions or any of our employees, but the crafters of the contract chose that term specifically, and so we choose to use that term for clarity and to keep Bernie from having to work too hard on something we might make a mistake on. So that's why terminate is selected as opposed to modify or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riedel.
That satisfies my question. Thank you. I'm pleased with that answer. And I think, as has been stated before, changing the terminology does not really accomplish a lot here. I will reject the proposition to modify it, and I will stick with the original as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Hallman. Done?
No, you have my light on. Thank you. Am I on? Yep.
You're good.
Mr. Riedel hits it right on the head. Keep in mind, this language is the language that was adopted by the labor organizations when these contracts were passed. They didn't have an issue with the term termination at that point in time. Somebody has to give notice of a termination. If it wasn't offensive when they signed the contract, it can't be offensive today when the notice is thereby given. Vote down the amendment, and let's get to moving all three of these and moving on. Thank you.
Supervisor Hallman, did you want to speak?
Yes, okay. I would. Thank you. I'm in favor of amending it, obviously. I don't know why it's the small things that are always so contentious. I'm reminded of the words of Bell Hooks, who says language is also a place of struggle. You know, I listen during citizen comments, and sometimes it causes me to do things. I'm sorry if that's a problem for fellow members of this body. The word termination would still be there. The motion was to change the word terminate to discontinue, but the word termination, as you see here in paragraph 3, would still be there in the last sentence. So, you know, take it or leave it. I'm just making a friendly suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Supervisor Bruning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess everything has already been said. I would not change the wording because that is the wording that is in the contract. And this is also the same wording that we used to terminate 2 other contracts already. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bruning. Supervisor Rose?
I have nothing else.
Okay. I have no other lights on. Roll call is requested. It's on the motion to change the language. The original resolution will stay as is. Any discussion on the...
Oh, excuse me, Mr.
Yeah. Okay. We will make sure that that is recorded that way. Okay, that amendment fails. We move on to any discussion on the original resolution. Supervisor Molinaro.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to read 5, 6, and 7 and vote on all 3 collectively, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to allow that because we have somebody that wants to abstain on one of them. So we'll just play them out one at a time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. We have next one. Okay, we're what number? 6. Okay, we will vote on that. All those in favor of the original? All those in favor of the original resolution? Roll call is requested. It was Supervisor Rose, second by Supervisor. Can't vote. Who's saying that? State your point, please. That resolution passes.
Resolution 7 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution authorizing a notice to be given of the desire of Kenosha County to terminate the collective bargaining agreement between Kenosha County and Local 1392 institutions. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move resolution number 7.
Resolution number 7 is moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor O'Day. Supervisor Rose.
I have nothing further to add either on this resolution or number 8. I think we've had the debate.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's very important that my fellow supervisors understand my position. We have an election that will be coming up for the recall of the governor, and I never did support any of these contracts that we're so-called terminating or we're getting rid of. And I think it's important that we let the people know that we support them first, and I don't feel like that this sends the message that we support them. So I will not be voting in favor of this termination of the collective bargaining agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Arrington. Supervisor Dodge?
Yes, I will have a conflict of interest, and I will have to abstain on this.
Okay, I don't see any other lights. Roll call is requested. Resolution number 7 passes.
Resolution number 8 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution authorizing a notice to be given of the desire of Kenosha County to terminate the collective bargaining agreement between Kenosha County and Local 168 maintenance and custodial workers. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose?
I would move resolution number 8.
Resolution number 8's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Molinaro. Supervisor Rose?
The only thing I would reiterate again is this resolution is in conformity with the contract. It's in conformity with state law. The committee did not view it as a political statement.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no other lights,
Roll call.
roll call is requested. Resolution passes.
Resolution 9 from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, a resolution regarding approving an amendment to the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Kenosha County 2035 for St. Lacovas Retreat Center, Incorporated. John Baladoris, agent, requesting a change from Farmland Preservation District to Park and Recreational District in the town of Brighton. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig?
Move resolution number 9.
Supervisor Brunig moves resolution number 9, seconded by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. St. Yakavos, the state requires a resolution from the Planning, Development, Extension, Education Committee and an ordinance from the full county board to amend the comprehensive plan. The resolution would allow an amendment to the Kenosha County Comprehensive Plan for a change from farmland protection to park and recreational in the town of Brighton. The town of Brighton recommended the approval of the request. Supervisor Rose had asked the question why there are so many on here, but this is actually the state required approval process that we have to go through every time there is a comprehensive plan change now. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no lights, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The resolution passes.
Resolution 10 from Public Works, Facilities, and Finance Administration Committees, a resolution to authorize the purchase of the exterior courthouse lights to be sole sourced. Elverman, yes. Noble, excused. Dodge, yes. Nudo, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Finance Administration, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Elverman.
I'd move resolution 10, Mr. Chairman.
Resolution 10 has been moved by Supervisor Elverman, seconded by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've never been a big fan of this sole source purchasing. In this case, however, it is going to save the county a significant amount of money that was budgeted for this outdoor lighting on this $5-point-some million project. Ruud is a Racine-based company that is giving significant discounted product to Racine and Kenosha County municipalities. The budget for this was significantly higher. This is the lighting that has been picked by our facilities people, and it's a beautiful product.
The exact dollar amount, I'm thinking, is about $80,000 below budget. So I would urge your approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Seeing no lights on the issue, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That resolution passes.
Resolution 11 from Public Works Facility and Finance Administration Committee, a resolution to grant a sewer line easement for access and maintenance. Alverman, yes. Noble, excused. Nudo, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Finance and Administration, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Alverman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move resolution number 11.
Resolution number 11 is moved by Supervisor Alverman, seconded by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Alverman.
Resolution 11 would give the City of Kenosha Water Utility a 99-year non-exclusive access limited easement to a outflow that they have, storm sewer outflow, that is next to the Kemper Center and the Anderson Arts Center. They currently have a gravel road access, and they have a 2001 letter of agreement for entry into county parkland. Since this serves the people on all sides and the people on that 3rd Avenue, it's to our advantage to let them continue this. In giving them this easement, they have agreed to do a 12-foot wide blacktop road in that will also hook up to our lakefront path. So it's good for the local citizens, it's good for our county park, and they have agreed to maintain the property. So I would urge everyone's approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Seeing no comments on resolution number 11, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 11 passes.
Resolution 12 from Public Works, Facilities, Finance Administration, and Planning Development and Extension Education Committees, a resolution to approve application for Wisconsin Stewardship Grant to expand Katy Park. Public Works, Alverman, abstain. Noble, excused. Nudo, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Planning Development Extension Education, Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Dodge, yes. Underhill, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Finance Administration, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, excused. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move resolution number 12.
Resolution number 12 has been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is to go ahead and apply for the stewardship grant. Unfortunately, the stewardship grant has already been applied for. The deadline on that was May 1st. We had to have it in by then. This is just more of a housekeeping item. They need the full board approval in order to send this with the application packet so that we can be considered for the grant. Again, this is for the stewardship grant only, and as with all grants, if we are accepted with it, we still has to come back to the full board, and we can vote it up or down at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bruning. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman?
Any opposed?
I had my light up there.
Supervisor Alverman?
Mr. Chairman, as you can see, I abstained at the committee level. I want to explain that reason for abstaining. I currently lease about 1/4 of an acre of the piece of property that we're talking about, of the 110-acre area. So I was advised to abstain from any voting on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. All those in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Communications from Georgie Melcher regarding future items scheduled before the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee.
Refer to Planning, Development, and Extension Education.
Summons and complaint, are Quincy Lee Carr civil rights violated?
Refer to Corporation Council.
Approval of the May 1st, 2012 minutes by Supervisor Hallman.
Supervisor Hallman.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 1st, 2012.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 1st, 2012. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Pardon? We are adjourned. Motion to adjourn. What? Second? Okay, we're adjourned.
There's got to be a vote on the